The 805 Focus is brought to you in part by Nonprofit Connect. Nonprofit Connect provides superior leadership tools and resources so nonprofit leaders and board members can make valuable decisions to move their organization forward to a sustainable and vibrant future. More information on services online at nonprofitconnect.org.
Welcome to 805 Focus. I'm Dr. Cinder Sinclair with Nonprofit Connect, and we will be bringing you the latest on your favorite nonprofits, so get ready to be inspired. Our special guest today is Elena Walczak, and Elena is the CEO of Calm. Welcome, Elena.
Hi, Cinder. It's so nice to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you were able to come on our show. I want to hear all the things, wonderful things, inspiring things, important things going on at Calm these days.
Happy to tell you.
So now, here you are, you and your staff, in the schools, people come to you, you go to them, you're in doctor's office, you're all over the place helping families. And so you must be seeing quite a bit of additional traumas, maybe different traumas, as a result of COVID and what it's done to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in case folks watching don't know, I'll just tell you what Calm does. We work to prevent childhood trauma, to heal children and families, and to build resilient communities throughout Santa Barbara County. So you're right, we do that in a variety of ways, and we like to say that we are where families are. So we provide services in our clinics, in our own offices in Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and Lompoc. But over the last decade, we've really been embedding our staff in other places where children and families are. So preschools, elementary schools, pediatrician offices, family resource centers, really trying to reduce those barriers for any families that need help to really access mental health supports easily and accessibly. But yes, the last 2 years, this pandemic, it's been challenging for all of us, I'm sure for you as well. Mm-hmm. But for the most vulnerable among us, the most vulnerable children and families, the impacts have been much more intense and more deeply felt. These are families that may already have been experiencing trauma before the pandemic, and then you layer on top of that loss of jobs, when schools shut down and families were trapped at home. Many of the families we serve lost loved ones to the illness itself. So just so many more stressors and traumas for the families that we're seeing. So at this point, we are seeing a huge uptick in requests for trauma support, and sadly a huge increase in the severity of the traumas that we're seeing in children coming to our offices. So the types of trauma, if you're not familiar, we work with children who may have experienced physical or emotional or sexual abuse or physical emotional neglect, but also families that may be experiencing domestic violence, or a parent who has a substance abuse issue or a mental illness, really anything that separates that connection, that critical connection between caregiver and child. That's the most important thing for a child, to have a healthy trajectory. And when that gets interrupted by abuse, neglect, or some other type of household challenge, it can have long-lasting impacts. And the pandemic just exacerbated that for all of us, but especially the most vulnerable.
Because now here they, possibly the parents are frustrated already for some reason, and now along comes the extra problems with COVID, and that just exacerbates the whole situation, and the kids are the ones that suffer probably.
Right. Before the pandemic, we screen all of our children as they enter service and get a tally of how many traumas, or you may have heard the acronym ACEs, ACE, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And Calm works with families that are experiencing complex traumas. So we've always worked with children with a high number of ACEs. Pre-pandemic, the average number of traumas that a child was presenting with was 4. Now, on average, it's above 5.
Wow.
So that's a pretty, out of 10.
Oh.
So that's a pretty staggering increase. And I should also say that our average age of a child is 8. So these are, so we're serving younger than 8 and older than 8, but the average age is 8. So for those little ones, that's a second grader, I believe, to be coming in with that many traumas. And definitely some of those are now linked to the pandemic, increased in substance abuse. There may be increased abuse or neglect happening. So our kiddos in our county are struggling. So really happy that my staff, our team has really been able to mobilize and meet those requests throughout this entire time.
That's got to be really hard on your staff as well, and you.
It is. I mean, because I think all of us are managing our own stressors. The last 2 years challenged all of us in our unique ways. So our staff was dealing with the ramifications of the pandemic for themselves personally, and then to hold the trauma of the clients that were coming seeking support and services was another layer. So we talk a lot about what's called secondary trauma or compassion fatigue, and I've written about this some, so you may have seen, but helpers have to do extra work to take care of themselves in order for them to be whole and healthy to help others when they're coming with their traumas. So we saw that after the fires and the debris flow. A lot of us were feeling that, really needing to replenish. A lot of us are feeling that now after 2 years of isolation and struggle. But for our staff, who's also holding the traumas of our littlest and our most struggling, we've really had to prioritize wellness and really helping. Yes, there's self-care. Our staff has to take care of themselves, but organizationally, we have to look at wellness as a shared responsibility because we need to show up for the community. So it's been a full couple of years.
I guess. Now, let's say somebody's watching this and they're thinking, gosh, I'd like to get in touch with them. I know somebody or that might need the help. How do they do that? I mean, how do people find their way to your door?
A lot of different ways. So we like to say there's no wrong door, and so anyone watching, just reach out for help. It's, I think stigma around mental health issues has come down, but it's still there. But all of us need help at different times, and if they're, the last 2 years have really shown that. Folks that didn't have mental health needs before are now feeling slightly depressed or slightly anxious, and it's okay to need help. So the way that you access help from Calm is really simple. We have a lot of referrals that are just coming, they're self-referrals, people just picking up the phone and calling us and asking for support. So someone will answer on our end, take a synopsis of what's going on, and a therapist will call back within a day or two to assess the situation and determine if it's an appropriate fit to come in for services. If not, we give resources and referrals to other agencies. So we're always setting people up with an action plan. But it can be really scary to make that initial call. You have to be ready to do it. But I will tell you that I think people are learning that it's okay to ask for help. The numbers of requests for service we are getting is tremendously increasing. But we also get referrals from teachers, from preschool teachers, from doctors, nurses, other community providers. So it doesn't have to be self-referral, but if you need the help, we're here to try to provide you that help.
And you serve children and adults, families.
We do. Some of our funding sources really prioritize the child, but you can't help a 5-year-old if you're not helping the adults in that 5-year-old's life. So we do provide ancillary therapy supports and other types of family supports. And a big part of what we're doing now is, again, like I was saying, we are where families are, recognizing that we need to support the adults that work with children in whatever setting. So yes, of course, parents, and that is the primary household, that's the primary caregiver, that's the most important adult for that child. But we also have to support the teacher. We have to support the pediatrician. So a big part of what we've been doing in recent years is educating those adult professionals about the ramifications of trauma. That if a little 3-year-old in a preschool classroom is acting out or biting a classmate, it's not that that child is a bad child.
Right.
Something might be going on at home, and they just don't have the words
Yeah.
to communicate and to ask for that help. So if we can help that teacher
Mm-hmm.
understand that behavior a little bit better and then provide some wraparound supports for that kiddo, that's going to be a better outcome for that little boy or girl, as well as all of the other classmates.
Yeah.
So we really are trying to look at that ripple effect
Yeah.
and support all the adults as well as the child themselves.
That's really great that you look at the whole picture like that.
Yeah.
And providing training on signs and symptoms is so critical.
And what to do, because right now, as you can imagine, as we all know, teachers are under so much stress, much stress.
Yeah,
And the mental health needs, as I've been talking about, are just skyrocketing, but they're not trained. That's not part of their job description. So it's really, in Santa Barbara Unified School District, we are the mental health provider for preschool through 6th, so we have therapists embedded in those classrooms and on that campus. But we really need to help those teachers be able to, when the therapist doesn't happen to be standing in that classroom, that they have tips and tools and strategies of how to manage. And then they can carry that on throughout their teaching career, better tips and supports of how to handle situations in the moment, when you need to refer a child for more intensive supports. But a lot of it can really happen within the confines of the classroom if you have a trauma-informed approach. So that's really what we're trying to focus on.
Wow, that is a great approach. And I'm sure that the people really, really appreciate that and learn from it. And like you say, carry it to their next position.
Yeah, hopefully. And really, if you can connect that teacher with the parent, with the student, then you have this circle of support. And that's where the goodness happens, because you can't do it in isolation. Just if the teacher and the student are building rapport, and maybe the parent and the student or their child are building, but you have to build that bridge between the family and the teacher. And so if we can help to create that systems loop, that's where the good stuff happens. So that's where lasting change can really occur.
And so people who come to you, do they pay a fee, or how does that work?
Most of our clients don't pay a fee because we have contracts through the county and through the state that enables us to provide those resources. But we do serve families of all incomes, so we have a sliding fee scale. So we do have some paying clients, and we assess that based on income, but the vast majority of our clients are not paying. And when we are embedded in the schools, that is a service. The school district pays for part of that, but we've also raised philanthropic dollars to make that possible.
So philanthropic dollars, as in financial donations, right?
As in financial donations, yes.
Okay, so Calm is a 501c3 nonprofit.
We are.
And when someone makes a donation, it's tax deductible.
It is, and I will just tell you that I was so overwhelmed by the generosity of this community over the last 2 years. Not to say that we don't have needs, because we do. We're a large organization, and to really meet this moment and to meet this mental health crisis, which isn't going to just be now, it's really going to be for this generation of kids. We're looking at the needs. You know, these 3rd graders are going to need us in 7th grade and in 12th grade, and it's going to be a long-term thing. But I will say that I think when community members were reflecting in 2020 and 2021 and even now how they could be of support, they really thought deeply about where their investments would make a difference. Yeah. And our supporters showed up for us, and we were able to maintain, like I said, all services, even increasing services. And that's just been tremendous, but the need continues. So yes, anyone can go to our website, which I think is on the screen, and make an online donation, or just learn before they make an investment. If they want to learn more about us, we are very open to that, so they really can understand what trauma is all about, how you build resiliency, and what some of our programs are really to support children and families. But we are so grateful for those that choose to support us.
That's great. So yeah, we would encourage everyone to go to your website and learn all kinds of things as well as make a financial donation.
As well as. Absolutely.
That's great. So I would imagine that you folks collaborate with a lot of different organizations.
We do.
Obviously the schools.
We do. I mean, we like to, you can't, with an issue this big,
Yeah.
you can't do it alone. So while we really pride ourselves on our expertise in trauma and really believe that that's a very important role for CALM, we can't do it alone. So we partner with 75 or more at this point organizations across the county, really anywhere that children or families might interface, and really supporting them and their work. Another area which we haven't talked about, which we're really proud has grown, is really embedding in the medical community.
Oh.
So we have a newer partnership with Cottage Health here in Santa Barbara in the NICU. So for families that have, you know, early deliveries and teeny tiny little, that is such a stress when you have a teeny tiny baby with complex medical needs at that point. And stress is the most common predictor of some type of trauma. And so we have partnered with the NICU to start providing services to those families, to those parents, to really help provide supports during that very challenging time. And we've also started partnering with pediatricians across the county, where they and their offices are screening for trauma at the earliest well-baby visits.
Oh, that's so good.
At 18 months, very, very early, so that if there are traumas, either for the parent, because we know that's going to influence their ability to parent, or for the child, and some traumas, or some children sadly have traumas as early as 1 or 2 years of age. Once that's identified, then we've created a network of support that CALM is a part of to provide therapeutic support and other more practical, direct support, concrete supports to connect those families with whatever resources they need. And this, you know, we were embedding in schools and then embedding in preschools, but to get to children even before preschool, you know, the brain development, basically kids' brains are mostly done developing by age 5. So if we wait until we see a child of need in kindergarten, it's almost too late. Those neural pathways are done. So to get connected to pediatricians and to have the pediatricians be the reliable advocate and the educator, a new parent trusts that pediatrician so much. So when they speak about the importance of healthy connection, what abuse looks like, how it can damage a child's future, that has so much weight. So we're so pleased to partner with pediatricians across the county. But
wonderful.
Yeah, we couldn't do this alone, so we really rely on these interconnections we've built with other agencies.
So you talk about embedding in the various places, your staff anyway. So does that mean that different staff members have different times that they're physically present at different schools and doctor's offices and here and there?
Yes. So for Santa Barbara Unified, we have at least one therapist who's embedded, is part of that school community. So they're on campus every day. They're floating around classrooms. They're meeting with the principal. They're meeting with teachers. They're meeting with students. Same in pediatrician's office. We have certain hours that our therapists are just embedded there. So a doctor might do a screen and then send them over to the therapist. Of course, during the pandemic, some of the in-person work has slowed, but we have been doing as much in-person work as we possibly can. We believe trauma recovery is best done human to human. So a lot of work has been happening outside, in backyards, in families, you know, in families' household spaces, outdoors. So really wherever someone feels safe to meet. But yeah, and not all of our partnerships are embedded. A lot of our work is partnering with other agencies to provide education or cross referrals. But we have really increased the numbers of staff that are embedded in other settings.
That is just brilliant.
And for me, that's how systems change happens.
Yeah.
If you have a trauma expert embedded in the medical space, that whole medical space starts to think about trauma and resilience in a different way. And that's where you have the anchoring in of this kind of work.
So Elena, we have about a minute left.
Oh my goodness, that
went fast. Do you have anything you want to either say to our audience and or say about building resilience in families?
Yeah, maybe just that I think the most important thing we can do if we care about children is truly to take care of ourselves, because we are the North Star for our, whether we have children ourselves or grandchildren or nieces and nephews or whoever those kids are, and really checking in with ourselves to know how we are doing, maybe in a developmentally appropriate way, talking about that with the child so they know that it's normal to go through periods of struggle. But really taking care of ourselves, and that connection between caregiver and child, like I mentioned before, truly is the most important protective factor for a healthy life for that kid. So the more that we can be in a good space and really proactively turn off the screens, turn off the news, get outside, play a game, walk around the block holding hands, whatever it is to build connection is really the most important thing that we can do. So
That's
wherever
wonderful.
you can do it, try to find a
gosh.
way.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you
thank
for
you.
all your great work and for sharing all that with us today on 805 Focus.
Thanks, Cinder. Pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on 805 Focus, and we'll see you next time.